Begin today the Gemara at the top of the Vav Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top of the Amud. The Gemara here is continuing to discuss Kidushin. It began with Kesef Kidushin, but it gets into the halacha of the various different lashonos that are possible for a husband to say when he's Mekadesh his wife. Because as we learned before, the Kidushin is not only the Nesine, but there has to be an Amira as well. The husband has to say to the Isha what he's doing when he gives her the money. Harei Yat Mekadeshes Li is the standard lashon that we say. So here the Gemara is going to ask regarding different languages and different expressions whether this works or not. So Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Braisa. Harei At Ishti. He gives her the kesef and he says, Harei At Ishti, you're my wife. Or Harei At Arusasi. The term Arusasi, Arusa means betrothed. Harei At Knuyeli, you're acquired to me. These all work. Mikudeshes. She'll be Mikudeshes because it's clear that it means Kedushin. Harei At Shali, you are mine. Harei At Perishusi, you are my possession or my authority. Harei At Skukali, you're connected to me. Mukadeshes. These lashonos also are clear that it means Kedushin and she's Mukadeshes. Frakta Gemara, Velisninu Kulu Kachada. Why doesn't the Tana and the Braisa say all these 6 expressions all as one? Why does he say twice? It divides it 3 and 3. And so the Gemara, Tana Tlas Shaminu. He heard the halacha regarding these 3 lashonos separately. So V'garsinu, and this is the way he taught it as well. Now the Shaila was asked, Miyucheles limau. If he says to his wife when he gives her the kesef kedushin, Miyucheles, you're unified with me, which comes from the lashon that it says by Adam Merishin, V'hoyu lebasar echad. Miyuedes limau, you're designated to me. That comes from the lashon that's used in the Torah by Yi'ud, Ashalo Ya'ada, by Amma Vriya, that you could designate, you could marry her. So the Torah uses this expression as well. Ezrasi mahu, if he says to her, you're my helper, or Negdasi mahu, you're my companion or my counterpart. That comes from the lashon that it says by Adam Marisha in Eseloi Ezer Kenegdai. Atsurasi mahu. Rashi says Atsurasi means that you're gathered in with me to my home. There's another pshat Rashi says, Taisus, but this is the pshat that Rashi says, it means that gathered. And Tzalasi mahu, which comes from the lashon that it says also by Adam Marisha in Vayivim in Atzela, from the rib. What? Yeah. Sigurasi mahu. So over there it also says Vayizgar Basa Tachtena, as Rashi brings. So it's also a lashon that says by Adam Erishen that you're closed with me. Tachti Mahu, you're beneath me. Tefusasi Mahu, you are seized by me. These lashonos l'chayra do not come from Sukkim. Lekuchasi Mahu, you are taken to me. What's the halacha with all these expressions? Is it clear that it means Kedushin or not? So Pshait Miyachade, says the Gemara, let's try to resolve at least one of these expressions here. So the Tanya, because we learned in the Braisa, Ha'omer Lukuchasi, if he says to her, you're my Lukuchasi, Sa'areza Mukadeshes. She is Mukadeshes. Mishum Shanema Kiyikach Ishisha. That's clear in this pasuk where it says the whole meaning of Kidushin, Kiyikach, that he takes her. So Lukuchasi works. Another lashon they asked about was Charufasi Mao. The term Charufasi, which is used in the pasuk by the Ishivcha Nechrefes. Nechrefes also is a certain expression that means a certain union, a certain connection. So does that work as well? Tashema, so the Gemara brings that ayah, the Tanya will learn in the Braisa. Ha'oime Charufasi Mekudeshes. Person that says to his wife, Hareyat Charufasi, she is Mekudeshes. Shekain be Yehuda Kairin La Arusa Charufa. Because in Yehuda, a certain section in Eretz Yisrael, they would refer to a woman that is betrothed, she's an Eshes Ish, as a Charufa. So we see that charufa in the way people speak means married, this edison. Frakta Gemara, how are you proving this from the way people speak in the area of Yehuda? Yehuda have Yeruba Alma. Is Yehuda most of the world? So how could you say that all over, when a person uses this expression, it's clear that he means marriage just because of the way they speak in Yehuda? Answers the Gemara, Hachikama. This is what the Braisa means to say. If you say the term charifasi, so then you're married. Shenemar, and this is based on the lashon of the pasuk. V'hi shivcha nechrefes leish. Regarding the halacha of the shivcha nechrefes, where a person violated her and she was already married to someone. That's what the term nechrefes simply sounds like. That she's married to someone. So therefore we see nechrefes means a form of marriage, kedushin. So if so, this is a lashon that can be used anywhere based on the pasuk, not only because of Yehuda. And then va'oid, then when the Braisa brings up the custom in Yehuda, that's the second point. Be Yehuda kairen la'arusa charufa. Also over there, we see that there's a place that they actually refer to a isha as a charufa when she's married, and therefore this is a good lashon. Frakta Gemara, how could you say that this is the pshat in the Braisa? Yehuda v'oid lekra. Is the pasuk bringing a proof from the custom in the place Yehuda after it has a clear raya from a pasuk? Why do we need a proof from a custom of people in Yehuda after you have a clear pasuk? So this is a expression that people use. This is where it comes from. Yehuda v'oid lekra. You're going to bring up a raya from a minig of Yehuda once you have a clear pasuk. Ella, therefore the Gemara goes back and says, no, the pshat here is actually different. Hachikama, this is what the Braisa means to say. Ha'omer charufasi bi Yehuda mekudeshes. If you use this term of charufasi, but only there, in that section of Eretz Yisrael, Yehuda, then it works. Then she'll be mekudeshes. She can be Yehuda kohen larusa charufa. Because only in Yehuda do they refer to a woman that's betrothed as charufa. But in any other place, it does not work. And Rashi here explains, even though it says in the pasuk v'hi shivcha nechrefes leish, but that pasuk is speaking about a shivcha kananis where there's no real marriage b'chlal. So if there's no real marriage, the lashon of charufa just means some kind of a union, some kind of a connection, but it doesn't mean an union of Kidushin. The Havamin of the Gemara was that it's speaking about a chetzi shivcha and chetzi bas chayrin, and therefore there is an aspect of real marriage that takes effect there, and therefore this lashon could be used for anyone. But now the Gemara is saying, no, charuf on the pasuk means just a shivcha kananis, so therefore only in Yehuda where they had this custom could you use this lashon. Okay, so now the Gemara asks, on all these lashonis we were just discussing, that if the husband says this to his wife, so it's not clear, does he mean Kidushin, does he mean something else? So the question here really is, there must have been a conversation going on before. The Chayre didn't come to her out of the blue and say it to her, Areyat Ezrasi, Areyat Negdasi. What was going on before? What's the case over here? If the case here is he's not talking to her about a subject of a get. So here the Gemara brings in a get as well, because this could be relevant regarding a get also. If he gives her a get and he uses a term that's not clear. Over here we're talking about Kidushin. He says to her one of these Lashonis mentioned before that's not clear, and he didn't have any conversation with her right before this regarding marriage. So then Mino Yoda might come along. How would she understand? How would she know what he's telling her? How can we say that these Lashonis, even we will say that the Be'emes, it's based on a Lashon of a Pasik, and it means Kedushin. But if he had no conversation with her about this before, and he's not using the term Kedushin, why should it work? So the case over here is that was the conversation. He was talking to her about the Kedushin. If so, if that's the case, if he's having a conversation with her about Kedushin, and then he gives her Kesef Kedushin, which may even be he's giving her a ring, so then he doesn't even have to say Arei Mekudeshesli altogether. He doesn't have to say anything. Just the conversation alone is enough to clarify what the Nesina of the Kesef is all about. And the Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, he's speaking to a woman or his wife, if it's regarding a get, regarding the matter of Gitin or Kiddushin, and then V'nosan lo Gita v'Kiddusha, and in this conversation, he gives her a get, or he gives her the kes of Kiddushin, V'loi Pirish, and he doesn't say anything. There's no Amira of Arei Mokadeshes or Arei Muteres. Rabbi Yosi says, Daye. Rabbi Yosi says, that's perfect. You don't have to say anything because the conversation itself is clear. However, Rabbi Yehuda argues and says, Tzarech lefarish. It's not enough that this was their conversation. He has to spell out clearly and say, Arei Mukadeshesli. Ravuna said in the name of Shmuel regarding this machlekes, halacha Rabbi Yosi. We pass like Rabbi Yosi that the conversation is good enough. So the question is, if there was a conversation here, there must have been a conversation, because otherwise there's no way she could know for sure what he's doing here when he's giving her and using these unusual expressions. So then why do we need any Amira altogether? Amri, so the answer that was given is as follows. The case here is that he did have a conversation here with her about this Kiddushin. Now, if he would give her the case of Kiddushin and he remains quiet, so then you're right. As we said, the conversation alone clarifies that he means Kiddushin. But over here, what's our whole shaila? He gives her the case of Kiddushin in this conversation, but and then he uses one of these expressions mentioned before. So therefore here the shaila is as follows. Hani lishni l'kidushi ka'amala. Do we say that because this was the conversation and he's using this lashon, so does the lashon express what they were speaking about in the conversation, that she's now married to him? Or perhaps because he's using an unusual lashon, there's something unusual that happened here. He's telling her, I'm going to be mekadesh you, and then he uses this strange expression for marriage. So maybe l'malach kamala. Maybe he's just using, you'll be my companion, you'll be my helper, maybe he's using all these various lashonos to say that we're talking about Kidushin, but not so fast. For now, you're just going to be my helper. So therefore, it becomes a shaila when he opens his mouth and uses this unusual lashon. Teiku, so all these lashonos before, most of them remain unresolved. Again, what? No, before the machlekes was whether you have to say anything when you medaber ima. Rabbi Yehuda says medaber ima, conversation is not good enough. You have to say an amira even though there was medaber ima. But the Gemara here is discussing according to Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi says having the conversation is good enough, right? Here the Gemara brings back again this machlekes. Guf.
Before that he has to give it in her hand, the money?
Yeah, the kesef Kidushin? Yeah.
Or just put it down?
No, you can't put it down. There's actually a discussion in Rishonim about that. The Gemara doesn't bring it up. By gittin, you can't put a get on the table and the woman takes it. There's a discussion in Rishonim if that applies by kesef Kidushin. There's a discussion in Rishonim about that, but it's not negay here. Gufa, so here, going back to this machlekes itself, it's interesting. This is a very, very integral machlekes regarding Kidushin, regarding the Amira, but it's actually a Mishnah in Masechta Ma'aser Sheni. That's where it comes up. So there it says in that Mishnah again, speaking to a woman about a get or about Kidushin. The Nasan Gita v'Kidushel, and he gives her the get and the Kidushin in this conversation, v'loit pirish, and he doesn't specify, he doesn't say Aret Mukadeshesli. Rabbi Yosi says it's clear, it's good enough. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to clarify, there has to be a clear amira of Arei Mukadeshesli. Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel, so Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel adds, so before we had also in the name of Shmuel, Rav Huna said in the name of Shmuel that we pass on like Rabbi Yosi, but here Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, according to Rabbi Yosi, that it's only if there's a conversation about Kiddushin, and it's still there in this conversation, they're talking about this matter of Kiddushin, and then he gives her the money. It's only if they're still mamish within this conversation about Kiddushin, and he gives her the kesef Kiddushin. Says the Gemara, Ketanoi, so this subject about Asukim Ba'isei Inyan seems to be a machlokes Tanoim. Because it says in a Braise, Rebbe says, V'hu shasukim b'yiseyin. They did have a conversation before about Kiddushin, but it has to be when they're still talking about the saying of Kiddushin, mamish, until when he gives her the kes of Kiddushin. Rabbi Laza, but Rab Shimon afapi she'ein asukim b'yiseyin. That they, even if they had a conversation before, but now they're not discussing this anymore, and the simple chat would be that they're discussing now something completely different, and if he gives her the kes of Kiddushin, still she'll be mukadeshes. So the Gemara asks him this, but how could Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon say this? But if they're not involved in discussing this matter of the Kiddushin, how does he know what he means to say to her? Or it's mashma l'chayre, some say that you take out the words ka'amala, because over here we're talking about that he gave her the kesef Kiddushin without saying anything. And he didn't have right now a conversation with her about Kiddushin. How does she have any idea what this money that he's giving her is? Is it a gift? Is it a loan? Or maybe a Kiddushin? So Abaye explains, even according to Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon, it means me'inyin le'inyin ba'oiseinyin. They were discussing the actual Kiddushin. He tells her that he's going to marry her. And then they went in that conversation from one subject to another, but all related to this subject. And the example Rashi gives is that he's talking to her about the marriage. How many properties do you own? What are you bringing into the marriage? And a dunya, and so on. So they're discussing related topics to the marriage itself. And in that context, he gives her the kesef Kiddushin. But it doesn't have to be mamish a dibur, a conversation about the Kiddushin itself. Again, the Gemara brings what was said before. Omer Avuna Mashmuel, halacha k'Rabbi Yosi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, that if you're discussing the matter of Kiddushin itself, so then she's going to be married. Omer Rav Yemel Rav Ashi, ve'elo. So Rav Yemel says to Rav Ashi now ve'elo ha, the Omer Rav Yudah Mashmuel. There's another thing that Rav Yudah said in the name of Shmuel regarding Kiddushin. Kol she'eni yedeya b'tiv gittin v'kiddushin. Anyone that doesn't know the halachas of gittin properly and the halachas of kiddushin properly, lo yiheloi eisik imohem, should not occupy himself with them. You shouldn't be a mesader kiddushin if you don't know the halachas of kiddushin, and don't be a mesader gittin if you don't know the halachas of gittin. And gittin is actually much more complicated than kiddushin, but either way, you shouldn't get involved in these matters if you're not a rav that learned and knows the halachas properly. So he asks him, that means afila leishmiele ha de Ravuna Mashmuel. Does that include even here this halacha that Ravuna said in the name of Shmuel, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi? So in other words, Rashi explains the reason why he was asking him about this is because his question is this halacha here regarding giving a Kidushin and not saying Arei Mukadeshas Li. Is this considered to be a halacha which is shchiach, and therefore you have to know this halacha, this kind of halacha as well? Or maybe this kind of halacha is not shchiach. And even if you don't know about such a kind of halacha, you could have an asik with gittin and Kidushin. So in other words, it's mashma from Rashi that when it says here that in order to be misader a Kidushin or be misader a gittin, you have to know the halachas of gittin and Kidushin well, it means those halachas that are shchiach, you have to know well. But if halachas that are not so shchiach, even if you don't know, you could be a misader gittin with Kidushin. And if something that's not shchiach comes up, you'll ask someone else. So he wants to know whether this halacha is considered to be shchiach. Amalei, and he answered him, enochanami. Yes, it includes this kind of halacha as well, because this could be something which is shchiach, that there was no proper amira at the time of the Kiddushin. Okay, going back now to a braisa that was quoted before, this was also from Shmuel on Daf Heyam at Beis, and there it said, v'chein v'geidishin, different lashonis that are used regarding geidishin, nasan lo gita v'amalo. He gives his wife a get and he tells her, Areit mushulachas, areit mugureshes, areit muteres l'chalodam, all these expressions, you're sent away, you're divorced, or you're mutter to anyone, areit mugureshes. These are the lashonis that she will become divorced. So here the Gemara will bring up various different lashonis, whether they work for geidishin. So pshita, this is obvious, nasan lo gita, he gives his wife a get, v'amal, and he tells her, to his wife, areit bas chayrin, you are free for yourself. Loi oma v'loi klum. This expression of bas chayrin is meaningless. This Gemara we're about to learn is mamish the same sugi that we learned in Masechta Gittin, towards the end of Masechta Gittin. Okay, so this expression of bas chayrin is she's not owned by a husband like a maid. So the term bas chayrin, that she's free, means nothing. She's free even when she's married to him. Amalol l'shivchasai. Now on the other hand, if a person tells his maidservant, hareyat muteres l'chol adam, you're allowed to go get married to whoever you want. That also is meaningless because she wasn't his wife. She was a maidservant. So for her, you have to say that you're free, not mutter. If he tells his wife, you are for yourself, mahu. What does this lashon mean? Does this expression mean that you're independent? You're on your own for your work, your income you can keep for yourself? Or la'atzmech means full independence. You're totally on your own. So Ravina says to Rav Ashi, we could learn this out from this lashon which the Braisa says when it's used for an eved or an amma. So Tashema, the Tanya, we learned in the Braisa or the Tanan, Gufay shall get shichrar. What is the actual lashon that you write into a document that you're coming to free an eved? Hareyato ben chayrin, hareyato la'atzmacha. You're free or you are for yourself. So here it uses this term of hareyato la'atzmacha. So here the Gemara says hashtu. So now, Oma evet kanani, if when it comes to an evet kanani, the kani le gufe, so you own there's a real ownership in the body of this evet that he's subjugated to you. So kiyam ale'areat la'atzmacha legamri kamalei. So la'atzmacha means that you're fully disconnected and you're independent from me. Isha de le'kani le gufe. The kinyan a husband has over his wife is not this extent of a kinyan le'kol shekeh. So definitely the term la'atzmacha is sufficient enough to mean that she's independent from him and not just for the earnings for her work. Ravina asks Rav Ashi another shaila. A person says to his evet kanani, Ainli esik bach, I have no occupation with you. What does this term mean? Does it mean to say Ainli esik bach legamri kamale? He's saying that I have nothing to do with you anymore. Completely, you're totally free and you're mutter with a bas chayrin. Or maybe all it means is he's saying to his evet, you're still my evet. And if you're still my Eved, you can't marry a Bas Yisrael. Like an Eved Kanani is to some extent like a Yid, but if you're still an Eved Kanani, you can't marry a Bas Chayrin. But as far as Malach is concerned, as far as work is concerned, you're not anymore subjugated to work for me. Malay Rav Nachman Rav Ashi, so Rav Nachman, or others Agaris here, Rav Chanan told Rav Ashi, he said, Rav Chanan Michuzah told Rav Ashi, Tashema, we can learn this from the Lashon of a Braise, or this maybe even is a Mishnah. We had this in Gittin, we just learned it not long ago. A person sells his Evet Kanani to a guy, so then what happens is he becomes completely free. And this is a knas with the Rabbanon because he's not able to fulfill mitzvahs when he's by a guy. So therefore, this Evet Kanani, which is mechuyev in mitzvahs, you're not allowed to sell him to a guy. But v'tzarech get shichror mirabei rishon. Even though there's a knas that he should be free automatically, but nevertheless, his first master has to give him a proper get shichror in order for him to be allowed to marry a bas chayrin. Amar Rab Shimon Gamliel. So Rab Shimon Gamliel says about this, when is this halacha true? That the first master has to still give him a proper get shichror to free him. Shalei kasav olav aynai. If he didn't give him a document of freedom when he sold him to the guy. Aynai means a shtar. Avol kasav olav aynai, but when he sold him to the guy, he already gave him a document of freedom, so then zeh shechrurei. That is already the full freedom. Now, heichi dami aynai. What is aynai? That shtar that he wrote for this eved when he sold him to a guy. What did he write? Amar Rav Sheisha is the kasav lei that he wrote for his eved. Keshetirach mimenu. When you run away from this guy that I'm selling you to him, ein li eisek bach. I have nothing to do with you anymore. And that's enough. He'll be completely free when he's sold to this guy. Okay, so here we see that the lashon of Eli Eisik Bach doesn't just mean independence as far as malach is concerned, but it means complete freedom. Amar Abaye. Okay, now we go back to the halacha of Kidushin, and specifically Kiddushi Kesef. So Abaye says, HaMekadesh b'milveh. Person that's Mekadesh his wife with a loan. Rashi explains, what does this mean? That he lent her money from before already. And he tells her now, this loan, this money that I lent you, so I want you to be Mekadeshes here to me with this money. Right? So in other words, that you can keep this money of the loan, and I'm not taking it back from you. Says the Abaye, Eina Mekadeshes. She will not be Mekadeshes with this. Why not? Because Kesef Kiddushin is, you have to actually give money. Ashi brings it. We learned that before. Kichem is day Ephraim. Over there, Avram Avinu gave money to Ephraim to buy stay Ephraim. So, in order for Kedushin to take effect, you have to actually give money. But over here, he's telling her, "I'm being the kaddish to you. I'm kaddish you with this money of the loan that I gave you from before." Now, that money of the loan she has already in her possession, and it's hers to use and spend. And the money's gone; it's not here anymore, and she has to pay him back. But that's other money that she pays him back. But that money that she can't tell her, I'm being Mekadesh with that milveh, because that money is gone already. However, says Abaye, Bahanoas milveh, if he tells her, I'm being Mekadesh you not with the actual loan, but I'm being Mekadesh you with a benefit that you get in this loan, then Mukadeshes, she will be Mukadeshes. But v'aser lasses kain, it's forbidden to do this mipnei haramas ribis, because this looks like ribis. Okay? So this looks like interest on this loan. Now, what exactly hanoas milva means, the Gemara is going to spell out over here. What's the difference between saying to a woman, I'm being mekadesh you with that loan that I gave you, or I'm being mekadesh you with the benefit that you get out of that loan that I gave you? So here the Gemara explains. Hanoas milva, when it says here the hana, the benefit that you got out of this loan, hey chidami, what is that talking about? And why are we saying that there's some aspect of ribis over here? Haramas ribis would mean that it's only ribis midrabanan. Minatayr, it's not real ribis. The askifa, if you're going to say the case over here is that he established this ribis right at the time when he lent her the money. So Rashi says, for example, he lent her $4. And he told her that there's interest and you have to pay me back $5. And now when he comes and he's Mekadesh her, he tells her that $5 that was the ribis that we made up in the beginning that you have to pay me, you don't have to give it to me. I'm being Mekadesh you with that $5 that you owe me. So the Amal, I heard the Gemara spells it out as well. The Amala Arba b'chamisha. There was Arba that he lent her and he gave her Chamisha. Haribis mal yasahu. If that's the case over here, there's a hana in the milveh, meaning because she gets hana, every loan is hana. You get to use and keep the money for a certain period of time. That's what the concept of ribis is all about. You charge interest for that time period that you can use this money. So if that's what Abaye meant by the hanas milveh, it's this ribis that he established in advance that you owe me, that you have to pay me because of the hana that you get out of the loan, and it's that ribis that he's being mekadesher with, so then that's real ribis. You can't say that this is just haramas ribis. This is only look like ribis midrabanan. Besides this, haino milva. It's the exact same thing as milva. Just like we said regarding milva, that you're not being mekadesher with an actual nesina of kesef, and therefore she's not mukadeshes. So if it's the ribis of this money that he made up with her that she owes him, and that money is not even here at all, and he's not giving her anything, so for the same reason she shouldn't be mukadeshes either. So why did Abaye say that with hanoas milva she is mukadeshes? And says the Gemara, loy tzriche. So the case over here, what Abaye was saying was the arvach la zimne. That what he did is he lengthened the time over here of this loan, which means he tells her that he's being Mekadesher, with this Hana, you would be ready to pay someone money to convince me to lengthen the time of payment for your loan. He made up with her that she has to pay the loan after 30 days. That's a stam milva after 30 days. But if she's in a tough situation and she doesn't have the money after 30 days, she would be ready to pay someone a pruta to go convince the lender, this man, to lengthen the time that she can pay. She has another 30 days. So now this time period has a value of money to her. So he's telling her, you don't have to pay anybody that pruta to convince me to lengthen this time. I'll lengthen the time for you without you paying someone to convince me. And that value of that pruta that you would pay to someone, that's what you're Mekadesh with. So even though he's not giving actual physical money to her, but he's giving her this value of money that she would pay somebody. When it comes to the loan itself, the loan is not here b'chlal. The loan is lohitzon itna. There's no loan and there's no hana of the loan. There's other money that she has to pay back to them, so she's not mukadeshes. But when it comes over here to this value of a pruta that someone would convince the husband to lengthen the time of the payment, that's a real value of a pruta that he could be mekadesher with right now. And therefore she's going to be mukadeshes. But this is called haramas ribis. Why is it haramas ribis? Because still it looks like that he's allowing her to keep the money with the hana of this Kidushin. That's really what the concept of ribis is all about. The concept of ribis is that I give you money and I charge you interest for this hana that you have to keep the money in your possession for this period of time. So over here it looks like ribis as well. So now she says it's not real ribis, because ribis minatayra is only when you set that price of the interest when you lend the money. Over here this is not something that was set when he lent her the money. This is something that later on he decided that he's giving her this Kidushin because of he's lengthening the time. It's one point. Another point Rashi says over here is there's no actual money that he's taking from. There's no actual ribbis that he's taking from her. It's just the pruta that she would have paid someone else is being Mekadesher with that pruta. That's Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. There are other Rishonim that argue on this. There's a very big discussion about this in Rishonim, how you teach this lashon of the arvach lazimna. Taisvis here, Rabbeinu Tam argues with Rashi and says that no, this is ribis gomer. The fact that she would have paid someone else this pruta, and he's lengthening this time for her without her having to pay anybody, and now she becomes mukadeshes with him. So there's that real pruta of Kidushin that the husband is gaining. The husband would have to give a pruta for this Kidushin, and now he's gaining that pruta here in this loan. That's real ribis. He's gaining a pruta out of this loan. So therefore, Taisa says a different shot that it means that she didn't even borrow money from this man b'chlal. She borrowed money from another person, and now this husband says that I'm paying off that person. I'll convince that person that you shouldn't have to pay him in the time that you made up with him. Right? So if you would have to go and pay off that person money to lengthen the time of your loan, I'll convince him to lengthen the time of the loan for you. So it's not ribis at all, because it's not even between you and this man. It's a loan that you borrowed from someone else. It looks like ribis because it looks like over here that there's extra money over here being paid over here for this loan. But it's not ribis because it's not between the husband and the wife over here. Okay, that's the two pshatim over here in the Gemara. There's more pshatim over here in this Gemara, but that's the tight chair. Omar Rava said another halacha regarding being mekadesh with kesef. Hey lachmana. Person gives his wife a mana, kesef Kidushin. Yeah, so here he's being very generous with this kesef Kidushin. You only have to give a pruta, but he gives her a mana. So yeah, the Gemara brings up mana because it's going to talk about different cases, not only regarding Kidushin. So he's giving it to her, al manas shetachzireyuli. But it's a matane al manas lahachse. I'm giving it to you with the condition that you return it to me. And b'mecher, if this is being used as a payment to create a kinyan of kesef regarding a transaction, a sale, to buy a property, for example, so one of the ways to buy a property is with kesef. But the kesef was given to the seller al manas that he has to return it. Loikana. So for a sale, the sale doesn't take effect. Be'isha, if a man gives a wife, a woman, this money al manas lahachzer, it doesn't ain't mukadeshes. B'pidyon aben, if the Yisrael gives for Pidyon Aben to the Kayin, the 5 sloim, al manas lahachzer, on the condition that the Kayin gives it back, ein b'noi padi. The Pidyon Aben doesn't take effect either. The Trumeh, when it comes to Trumeh, so you give a Kayin the Trumeh, al manas that the Kayin gives you back the Trumeh, yotza yedei nesina. So here the Braisa says, or Rava that it says, you will be yotze the mitzvah of giving the Trumeh, but it'll be forbidden to do so. Why? It looks like the Kayin is helping out in the threshing place, and he's helping with the plan to truma from you. So Rashi over here brings that a kain misayeh beveis agronis. There's a Mishnah that says that you have to give the kain the truma because the Torah says to give him the truma. He deserves the truma because of what the pasuk says, not because he's your helper and therefore you're sort of giving it to him as a mode of payment or some kind of recognition for his help for you. So over here, when you give a kain truma al manas lahachser, even though really you yaitze the nesina, but nevertheless it looks like the kain is giving it back to you. So like this in the future, you'll be interested in giving your truma to this kain because he did you this favor that one time that he gave you back this truma. So therefore, you shouldn't do so. Okay, that's the halacha that Rava said. So the Gemara now asks the obvious question here that my kasavar Rava. What does Rava hold here about this? I kasavar matane al manas lahachser shma matane. When you give a gift with the condition that you have to return it, so then this is considered to be a valid gift, even though the condition is to return. But nevertheless, the gift is a gift. So by all of them, the halacha should be that it takes effect. It's either by the mecher, by the isha, by the pidyon ben. The halacha should be that it's a good sale, a good kidushin, a good pidyon ben. And if Rava holds that a matana when aslach is not a matana, since the very condition itself is to return, so then the whole matana is really not a matana in the first place. So then afilu truma namiloy. So then if you give truma, so why are we saying regarding the truma that yotze yidei nesina? Truma should be the same like all the others. So basically, what's the reason for the distinction here? Why is Truma any different than the others? A second question here is Harava Huda Amar. It's Rava himself that said Matana al manas lahachzer shma matana. When you give a gift with the condition that it has to be returned, it is a gift for that time that you got it. It's yours completely. Rava says the famous halacha regarding the mitzvah of esrik, the dalad minim. Heilach esrik zeh. Person gives an esrik to someone. Al manas shetachsi reyuli. On the condition that you return it to me, and matana manas lahachzer, not loy. The person takes the esrik, the dalad minim, vechzira. He does the mitzvah, and then he returns it. Yatza, he's yaitze the mitzvah, and then he's mekayim the mitzvah by the esrim. It has to be lekachtem lechem. It has to be yours, and you yaitze the mitzvah. But if he didn't return it, vim lav, he never returned it, then lo yatza. He's not yaitze the mitzvah because now it comes out that it's gezel. He wanted to give it to you as a gift, but you didn't fulfill the condition, so it's gezel. So what's the pshat over here? We see Rava holds matana manas lahachzer is a matana. Elam Ravashi, so therefore Ravashi says we must say different. The kulu kani. Really, by all of those mentioned before, you give a matana manas lahachzer, the kinyan takes effect. Levar meisha, but the only exception actually is regarding the Kidushin of an isha. You can't be mekadesh a isha with kesef as a matana manas lahachzer. Why not? The fishay isha niknes b'chalipin. This goes back to the halacha we learned on Daf Gimel because chalipin does not work for Kiddushin. Chalipin is a similar thing to matana manas lahachzer. You give the handkerchief and the buyer picks it up and he gives it back to the seller, or the other way around. The buyer gives it to the seller. Kopanim, it's a matana. It's just like a matana manas lahachzer. That's the way Rashi learns this over here. Taisu says it's not exactly like chalipin, but it looks like chalipin. So therefore, you're not going to be kaina. Amalei Rav Huna Mar Berei Rav Nechemia Ravashi Hachi Amrina Mishmei Rav Kavasech. Like Ravashi said, this is really what Rava said before, and the way it was quoted before Rava was a mistake. But this is how Rava said this halacha.